Hey my friends, check this out right here. Watch this. Today I'm going to teach you one of the funnest joints that I know how to do. This is called the lap joint. I love teaching this one to people. This joint is done with 2 pieces of aluminum plate, and this one presents a couple really fun things that you can work on, and if you get this one right, it looks amazing. But before we get going with this one, download the workbook. This is what we're going to use to go off of for this lesson here. I'm going to be referring to this workbook a lot in this episode, so make sure you go pick it up. The workbook is in the description below. It's free, so go get it and make sure that you can follow along with the lesson here. Okay, come around this side real quick here so you can take a look at this. First of all, welcome to the shop here today. It's kind of fun just to hang out, try a little bit of a different format for this episode today. I'm really excited about this one. I guess I could take this off for now. We're going to go over the TIG welding basics that are going to get you going with this joint here. We're going to go over some machine settings on basic machine setup, how to get you going with whatever gear you got going on in your shop. But come check this out here. Okay, so here's the aluminum plate that we're going to use for this lesson here. This is a 5000 series aluminum. You can use 5000 series, you can use 6000 series. Some people even practice with 4000 series. Use whatever you have, but I just prefer using a 5000 series. It works well. I'm gonna use 5356 filler material, pretty basic and straightforward stuff. When it comes to filler rod, typically I recommend using 5356. A lot of people can use 4043. It's a very common filler rod. However, if you're just learning and just getting up and off the ground, trying to learn how to use your machine and stuff, if you have access to 5356, I recommend using this stuff. It's just a little bit more forgiving. You get more of a consistent finish. I find it easier to get good feedback and break down your own work when using 5356. Okay, but before we get going here, we need to go over a couple things. We're gonna go over our cleaning procedures before we actually get welding with any of the materials we have going here. And then, boring, I know, but this is extremely important. We're gonna go over some safety stuff. So I'm working in a confined space here. I do have windows and doors open here. I'm also gonna be using fume extraction when I'm welding, so this will help to move some of the air around the shop. I recommend personally always wearing a respirator when I'm welding, but most importantly, make sure that you have fresh air circulating through your shop at all times. Make sure that you're wearing good gloves. These gloves are well, actually, no, they're not brand new at all. These are like 8 months old, almost a year old, actually, probably. But they're still in good condition. There's no holes in the palms, anything like that. Anytime there's you get gloves with like a hole in the palm or rip or anything like that, throw them out. Get new ones if you can't repair them. It sucks getting burns through little holes in your gloves. So honestly, I have a 0 tolerance kind of procedure for wearing gloves. If you wear through a finger, you got a hole or something like that, ditch them, get new ones. Typically when I'm working in a shop with other people around, like you're in here with me today, I would essentially always be wearing eye protection. Eye protection is extremely helpful when people are handling filler material. As an instructor, when I'm working with people, one of the most fumbly, awkward things people work with, a lot of people think it would be the torch that you're working with. It's not. It's always the filler material. When you get a student in here or working around other people with a brand new piece of filler rod, they're going to be handling it weird. It's going to be wobbling all over the place. So if you as an instructor or me or whoever is standing around kind of watching over people's shoulders, I've seen instructors get poked in the eye many, many times. A lot of people say, oh, just bend the end of your filler material over. Just wear eye protection. Just put it on. Always a good idea. Obviously, I want to make stern eye contact with you here today. So I'm not going to have eye protection on while I'm teaching this lesson. However, if you are working in a shop with anything, I always recommend breathing protection, eye protection, and just cross off everything as far as safety. Now, if you want to go further with the safety stuff, I go over some other fire prevention stuff. Go refer to that section in the workbook. It's definitely important that you cross these things off the list before we get going here. So the first thing that we want to make sure that we really thoroughly do is to properly clean our stuff before we use it. A lot of people know that we should clean the base material. You also should clean the filler material that you're going to work with. Let's just start with the base material first. Always inspect it. Make sure that there's no plastic film on it. Sometimes these come with it's like a sticker sheet on top of these things. There was actually one time I was set up. I got hired to come into a high school and give a welding lesson to a bunch of high school kids. It was awesome. And I set up, got everything clean, everything ready to go. But I forgot to peel this plastic stuff off the coupon. So literally, I lit up for my first weld and it was just like black curling smoke. And I realized instantly what I had missed. So it was like a great first impression in front of like 50 kids or something like that. They all had their welding masks like looking real close. And then I had to stop the weld, explain to them what happened. So save yourself any future embarrassment. Just give these a quick inspection before you get going. Make sure that there's no plastic sheeting on. If there is, just peel it off and then we'll proceed with cleaning it like I'm going to show you here right now. All right, so this is what I always use here. This is acetone. I usually just typically use it with paper towel. Honestly, with whatever you're using, just make sure you don't get it on your clothes. Again, proper air circulation because there are fumes. Whatever rag or whatever you're using, just make sure it's clean. When you get going with this stuff, all I basically want to encourage you to do is just make sure, again, everything is clean that you're going to start with. And then I typically clean the same way I'm going to wire brush. I always clean lengthwise to the direction of welding that I'm going to do. I do all the edges of my plate because this way you're always going to make sure that all the surfaces are going to be clean. Even the sides that you may not weld, I'll do those too. Then we do the same for obviously every other plate to the joint. So take a look at that. That's a brand new piece of plate that theoretically has not been handled by that many people. Is pretty much filthy. We're also going to flip over this piece of paper towel here, do a clean side, and we're going to clean the filler material that we're going to use too. I'm going to do a few sticks of it here. Watch this. You just basically pinch it in between your fingers, draw the filler material through, makes a cool noise. Kind of weird, right? Draw it through a few times. I'm going to grab a couple other pieces, but check this out here. That's one piece of filler material. Look at the stuff that's on there. It's filthy. Every time you do a new stick, find a new side, a nice clean part of your rag or whatever you're using. Again, this is tedious and kind of annoying, but check out what would have gone in your weld if you hadn't have cleaned this. There we go. We got a few filler material rods clean, ready to go, decontaminated. Our plate has been thoroughly cleaned. I'm going to show you how to wire brush it here in a sec. But again, this is brand new material and brand new filler material rod. Look at what we just cleaned off it. Okay, and then super important. This is a step that most people honestly forget, and this is extremely vital to our safety in here. Put your cleaning supplies completely away from your welding area. We've got a piece of paper towel or whatever that's soaked in an extremely flammable liquid. A lot of people just leave them laying around. That lights on fire. I've seen it happen many, many times. Put your cleaning solutions well away from any area that you're going to have open flame, welding sparks. Like, seriously, make sure you put this stuff away. This will explode. Take the time to clean up, be smart, don't light yourself on fire, and don't blow your shop up. You heard it from me. Okay, so we're going to use the CanaWeld 201 pulse steam machine here. Let's turn it on. Wait a couple seconds and then the fan turns off. We can talk to each other. All right, there we go. I love this machine simply because it's so easy to use and super, super simple to set up. You guys have seen this machine on my channel for literally like 5 years now. This is still the first one that I got. The torch that I'm using with this thing right now comes with the machine. And again, CanaWeld is running a rebate program on these. So if you are thinking about pulling the trigger on one of these machines, now is the time to do it. Don't miss out. Now again, we're gonna go over setup and settings. Get the workbook. You wanna check the pages where I show you how to properly set up your terminals and everything like that. Go download that workbook. Now with what we got going on here, we are running on AC or alternating current. This is required for welding aluminum. And again, the settings that you pick are going to depend heavily on the thickness of material that you're using. Now for me, I'm using 1/8 inch plate here today, so I'm going to set it for about 140 amps, give or take. Pretty sure this should be enough. So Dusty from the future who's editing this, is that enough?
No.
All right, I'm sure we're perfect. Let's carry on. Now, another thing worth mentioning is I'm using the foot pedal, so you'll be able to see as I'm welding the actual readout of how much I'm using as far as my amperage. Now I'm going to scroll over to my post flow here. 7.5 seconds is probably not going to be enough. I prefer a little bit extra just in case. So I'll set it for 8. Let's go 9 seconds just to be safe. For my balance, I'm about 30% on cleaning, so 70% negative. You can see my frequency is 100 hertz. That's absolutely fine for now. Pre-flow, just a quick blast of it. No upslope, no downslope. 140 amps, very simple. I absolutely love this thing. And for the gas I've got this thing hooked up to, it's 100% argon. I'm gonna be running about 17 or so CFH through my regulator. And now that we got this going and everything's set up, let's go set up the torch. Okay, so this is a torch from my CanaWeld machine here. This is the one that matches the machine. This is a 26 style torch. After I take off my adapters from my cup here, you can see that I'm using a gas lens setup. I love using these. Just take it apart here real quick so you can see what's inside of it. You can see this is the outer collet body or the actual gas lens portion. This is the inner collet sleeve. This is a slit style. I don't really prefer these. I prefer the wedge style ones better. But for what we got going here today, it's not a big deal. I'm using a ball preparation. This is just what I prefer. And again, this is a tiny, tiny one. It's not even that big, but essentially putting everything together, you just want to make sure that when you do it up, everything is fully tightened up. and I use my welding pliers. I just give it a little squeak extra, nothing extreme. For today, I'm going to be using an Edge number 7 cup. A lot of people ask me if Pyrex or glass or whatever see-through cups make much of a difference for aluminum. Personally, I don't find much of a difference as far as the actual performance of the weld, but for filming these episodes here for you guys here today, the visibility of these things is crazy. You'll be able to see everything a lot better if I use one of these. So yeah, typically anywhere between like a number 6 or a number 7 cup is typically what I will use for welding aluminum. I wouldn't use anything bigger than a number 8 size cup. I find that if you're using like a number 10 or something like that for aluminum, you're kind of at a point of like diminishing returns where the gas is just going to require more volume. And at that point, it's not really going to do much for your weld at all. Now, as you've probably seen, I use a ball preparation on my tungsten. I've been over this a bunch on my channel before. I'm not really going to get into it too much here right now. But essentially, the one thing that you have to remember is that the ball that I'm using on the tip of my tungsten, you can see it here right now. This is absolutely tiny. This is way smaller than the diameter of my tungsten. So even though there is a ball on the end of it, it's tiny. I find this to be a nice little middle ground where we can run a ball preparation, which will help to keep our tungsten tip or preparation for a longer amount of time. It won't be affected by your balance setting on your machine as much. Yet by running a smaller ball on your electrode, essentially this is gonna act the same as like if you're running like a pointed tungsten or something like that, your accuracy is gonna be much better. And for something like what we're working on today, where our joint configuration is on 2 separate levels, this is going to help you out a lot with that. If you're grinding your tungsten or anything else like that, make sure, please, you wear breathing protection, eye protection, and again, put all the flammable stuff away. Don't skip these steps. Now, I do have a whole section in the textbook where I go over properly preparing your tungsten. Make sure that you refer to these pages in the workbook. But now that we got our torch put together, pretty much exactly how we want, we got our machine set up and pretty much dialed in for what we're gonna be doing here. But what we're gonna do now at this point is we're gonna tack these things together. You're gonna wanna make sure that you have these relatively flat and straight. And I recommend clamping these in place. I usually give it a quick wire brush at this point here. And then basically I'm just gonna try and get set up as if I'm actually doing the actual weld here. What I wanna do at this point is I just wanna make sure that I am comfortable and I can see clearly. Now, when we're ready, we can fire up and start tacking this together. This is gonna be a great way to test my settings and make sure that things are running clean at this point. This is gonna be a great opportunity where you can test out your torch angles. You can get a really quick practice to get the filler material into the joint and see where the filler material goes. And then taking a look at it after the fact here. You can see each of my tacks has been done in a little 2-step tack, not just one static blob. These are gonna help to give me a good pocket to start and finish my welding passes from. You just wanna make sure that these aren't too big. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do here is give you some considerations of things to do before you get welding at this point. Check this out. So after I've tacked these together, we're happy with the size of each of these. I'm basically gonna pick the lowest point of each one. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a ruler to scribe a line on the bottom plate. So what I'm gonna do here is use a metal, like a steel ruler kind of thing. And I'm gonna line it up on the bottom edge, somewhere around the bottom of the lowest tack that we see here. And then I use my scribe. You can use an actual piece of tungsten if you don't have a scribe. And I'm just gonna scribe a line clearly on the bottom edge. This is just gonna basically be a guide. It doesn't actually like determine where your bottom line is for your actual weld. This is just gonna be something that's gonna be there as a reference point so that we can maintain consistent width from start all the way to the finish. After you're done with that, I'm gonna grab my wire brush. I always have a wire brush designated for aluminum only. You can see this one right here as a reminder because I'm kind of stupid and I forget things sometimes. I'm just gonna make sure that I thoroughly wire brush the actual edge of the top plate. This is really important. And then I'm gonna take my metal ruler, I'm gonna lay it on top like this. I'm gonna wire brush a little bit back from the top plate. Then after I'm done that, I'm actually gonna do the same with the bottom plate here, you can see. But then when I'm done, check this out. You can see that the presentation of this is everything. The wire brushing does not look crazy and disorganized. Everything is nice and clean. It has been wiped clean with acetone. There's nothing more frustrating to me than seeing a really nice weld that's been done on top of some absolutely outrageous wire brushing. Remember, this stuff doesn't always get painted. Even if we're practicing, let's take the type of pride like this with our work all the time. One thing I recommend doing is positioning this or elevating it off the table a little bit. You're gonna find that the visibility is much greater when you elevate it a little bit up like this here. So now going off of everything that we've learned so far and everything we've been over in the workbook, we've done a lot of stuff here. We've gone over our material preparation, extremely important, our safety, which is very, very important. We've gone over proper joint assembly. The tacking procedure has been done really well as the wire brush that we did. We've got a scribe on the bottom plate. That's gonna be our reference so that when we're welding, we won't lose track of where we are. And then however you want to position it, just make sure that it is secure. It's not going to wobble around or do anything silly when you're trying to weld it. And this is the exact same setup. Sorry, a little mosquito in here. Exact same setup that we're going to do with literally any joint that I'm teaching somebody. All right, so if you're ready, grab your helmets. Pop on next to me here and let's weld this out. Okay, we got the machine back running, so the fan's going here now. I've got ventilation going in the shop. I'm set up comfortable. I can see as best as I can while trying to peek around this camera here right now. Let's flip the lens down, let's do it. Okay, so as I get going here, I'm just making sure that I wait for my start completely before I start moving. I'm giving it a little bit of filler material and I'm really waiting for the bottom line to blend out. And then once I'm happy with my bottom line, I'm gonna try a step or two. And again, I just wanna make sure that with every step I take, I'm letting the filler material blend out completely on the bottom edge. That's the edge to watch. I'm really making sure that I'm following my reference line on the bottom. And you can see I'm making sure I put enough filler material in for each step that I take as I'm traveling. Now as I approach my tack here, I'm going to back off nice and slow. And I just want to make sure that I post flow without moving my torch. Once the post flow is done, I can take my torch away. Okay, looking at the first half here, we can see that everything looks pretty good as far as what we want to see. The cleaning action looks nice and clean, looks consistent from start to finish. We don't see any erratic cleaning action. And again, in my workbook, there's a whole section devoted to the cleaning action. Do not miss those pages. So now getting ready to do the second half, I'm just going to make sure that I start out right in the pocket where I left off. And I'm going to stop a little bit shy from the end here. This will help to prevent overheating. Okay, so getting going on the second half here, you can see that I'm really hanging out and making sure that I let the start blend in and establish properly before moving. Because I was chatting away there for too long, this plate cooled down, so I gotta wait for it to heat up again. I kind of wish I put an extra 10 amps on the panel, but that's all right, we'll just wait. Okay, now that it's a little more settled, I'm gonna start moving, a little bit of filler again. And again, all I'm doing is watching my bottom line. I'm making sure that everything blends in. I'm using my reference line on the bottom plate. And I'm just making sure that I monitor and keep up the amount of filler material as I move. Okay, now approaching the end, I'm backing off the heat drastically compared to where I started. Keeping up the filler material. Don't let this area fall flat. Back off nice and slow and then don't move. Leave your torch here. Let the post-flow cycle finish. Once your tungsten stops glowing red hot and the post-flow cycle finishes, you can remove your torch. Okay, we got a hot one here. Let's take a look at it though. Actually, hold on. Let me turn the machine off. The fan does turn off after like 2 minutes, but I'm too impatient. All right, jump around here. Let's take a look. All right, overall, I'm pretty happy with this one. The first thing we're going to take a look at here is the overall consistency from start to finish. This should look consistent all the way across, even across both passes involving the stop-start. The profile and shape of everything should have been established within like the first dab or two, and then once there, all that we had to do was basically babysit from start to finish, and then pick it up and carry it on for the second half and maintain it. Again, if you're doing everything to set up properly at the start, essentially once you start moving, it should just be babysitting at that point. Now we did talk about this around the halfway point when we stopped in the stop start, but take a look at the cleaning action here. We want the cleaning action to be consistent from start to finish, and we want it to be clean. We do not want any erratic or weird looking cleaning action. Now again, refer to the workbook pages. There's an entire section devoted to the cleaning action. It's extremely important. We can see that the stepping distance that I use, that's the distance in between each step as I traveled along. This distance looks really consistent from start to finish. We don't see anywhere that's overly crowded or overly spaced apart. Again, with the distance that I went with, we can see that the bottom line is nice and straight with everything that we see here. And again, when it comes to stepping distance, this is an important detail that is in the workbook as well. Refer to those pages and check it out. Now, when I'm checking out somebody's work, I also want to break down any differences between the first half and the second half. Obviously, when we get to this half here, this is going to be smoking hot. There's going to be a lot of variables changing. I want to make sure that as we're approaching the end, that the profile doesn't fall flat. It's going to cloud up a little bit just because it's really hot at this point. But we can see that the bottom line carries on nice and straight all the way towards the end. Across both of these passes, this detail looks pretty consistent from start to finish. Again, I probably would have added about 10 amps just to get everything cooking a little bit faster with both stop starts. But overall, I'm pretty stoked with this one. So I strongly recommend that you go get the workbook and follow along with all the details that we went over in this lesson. Come on, you're gonna get it or what? It's absolutely free. You can return to this lesson, watch it, and follow along with the workbook as many times as you want. I put a lot of effort into making this workbook for everybody out there, so I hope you enjoy. Again, thank you so much for joining me in my workspace here today. I had a ton of fun doing this lesson with you. My name's Dusty James. Fill and chill. We will talk soon. Peace.